And good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Territories Talk. Territories Talk was founded in 2021 by persons in different parts of the British Overseas Territories, namely Bermuda, the Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, to highlight not just what's going on in our respective islands, but allow people in our islands to tell their own stories, because often in media, unless there's a natural disaster, the media does not focus on the Caribbean, and it definitely doesn't focus on the smaller islands. So shout out to the original co-host Shana Smith Archer, of the beautiful Virgin Islands, Eden Harrelson of Cayman Islands, and now our newest co-host, Speaker Shirley Osborne of Montserrat. Shout out to our media partners, Cayman Mall Road in Cayman Islands, Channel 82 in Bermuda, CBN Radio and TV in the Virgin Islands, Radio Turks and Caicos in Turks and Caicos Island. So today we're going to be once again, talking about leadership. Many persons associate leadership with whoever is the political leader, and that's just a small part of leadership. Leadership comes in many forms, whether it be community, could be a school, could be a churches, could be a lodges, could be just business entities. Leadership. So today I have the honor of having someone I consider a good friend for the last almost 15 years. We disagree on some things, not much, but some things. And today I'm going to have him on, and I'm going to allow him to talk about the leadership in his life that's helped to mold him and what he's doing for people around the region. Without further ado, I introduce my good friend, Guilden Gilbert. Morning, Mr. Gilbert. How you doing?
Morning, Mr. Famous. I'm doing well. How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. So, how? Oh, whoops, my bad. How is Guilden Gilbert? And more importantly, who is Guilden Gilbert?
Uh, Guilden Gilbert is doing well. Guilden Gilbert is a born Bermudian, always will be a Bermudian, but is a resident of the Bahamas. Otherwise than that, I am who I am.
Okay, so unless you're the Jesus Christ, you weren't formed from Immaculate Conception. So tell us who about your parentage.
Sure. Well, I'm a junior. My father was Guilden Gilbert Sr. My mother is Sylvia Gilbert. My father was one of the 49 dockyard apprentices that left dockyard in 1950 to go to finish their apprenticeship at the Portsmouth dockyard in England. He was 15 years old. And there he met my mother. They got married, returned to Bermuda. And I showed up in 1966.
So obviously he didn't get married at age 15, right? How old was he when he got married?
No. Yeah, he was 21. My mom was 18.
Okay, yeah. Clean that up a little bit. And so back in those days, as we know, our countries have a lot of history when it comes to racism. What was it like? Young black strapping man from which part of Bermuda is your dad from?
Somerset.
Okay, all right, leave that out.
Ironically.
A young black man from Somerset marrying a pretty young lady from England. How did that, to your knowledge, how was that received in society?
Ironically, it was actually very well received. My parents didn't face, they faced some issues of racism in England, but they probably faced more issues of racism when coming back to Bermuda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how long?
My father was that?
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so my father was a shipwright by trade. And if you go through the city of Hamilton now, my father passed away in 2015. He retired. I think he retired in 2000 and I think he retired around 2005, 2006. So all of the corporate buildings that went up in the city of Hamilton prior to that, he would have probably manufactured 90% of the air conditioned sheet metal ductwork, because the companies that he was with tended to pick up those contracts because of the quality of product that he produced. Um, but when he came back from the UK, Bermuda was still governed by the British. The civil service was all British. So he couldn't get any inroads there, even though he had more experience. My mom couldn't find work initially because she was a white woman married to a black man. Thankfully, the Gibbons family offered her employment, and she worked for them for her entire career, over 50 years. Worked directly with Sir David Gibbons, and so a lot of people, I don't think truly understand who the Gibbons family is. I think there's some misconceptions. I mean, Sir David and I butted head on politics, but the Gibbons family, they're good people, based on my experience with them.
Mm. All right. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. So tell us about your primary school, high school, because this is Bermuda, so we want to know who your people are, what
Right.
school you went, normal pokey stuff.
No problem. No problem. Well, when I was born, we lived in Warwick, Khyber Pass. So I went to Purvis Primary. At 8 years old, we moved to St. David's, but I stayed at Purvis and I finished Purvis. So I used to catch the bus from St. David's to Purvis every. From there, I went to Whitney Institute, graduated from Whitney in 1983, did Bermuda College for 2 years, and then went off to Acadia University in Nova Scotia and did a degree in finance and economics.
And then once you finish that university degree, then what?
Then after graduating, I moved back to Bermuda. I was a management trainee with Bermuda Commercial Bank. I finished that after a year, and I ended up as a foreign exchange dealer. I was there until 1991, because my wife and I got married in 1990. So I was there until 91.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved under the direction of Patrick Tannock to Marsh. Patrick brought me and took me under his wing as a professional liability insurance broker.
And what was that about? For those who don't know what that means.
An insurance broker is essentially just a person who negotiates insurance coverage on behalf of a client and places that insurance business, with the insurance company. Now, at Marsh, the clients were the U.S. Fortune 500.
Mm. All right. So tell us about, you say you got married. Tell us about meeting your wife and so on.
Yeah, my time at Acadia was extended by 1 year, due to the most part because of my first year at university, where I wasn't overly focused. Had a good time, but I wasn't overly focused, so I ended up staying an extra year at Acadia, and that's when I met my wife. In my last year at Acadia, I graduated in 1990. We got married in 1991. She's Bahamian, so we got married in the Bahamas. We moved back to Bermuda, and we were in Bermuda until 1997 when we relocated here to the Bahamas, and been here ever since.
So tell us.
But Bermuda's always home.
So your wife has a name, I presume.
Yes, she was Sandra Barry. She became Sandra Gilbert. We We have two children. My son Tyler is 27. He's a screenwriter. He lives in Toronto,
Mhm.
getting married next year. My daughter Madison is 16 years old. She is a competitive swimmer, and she's in grade 11, so she has another year of high school after this, and then she'll be off to university.
Your son looks like he could lift
So
you up.
my life revolves around my family. What's that?
Your son looks like he could lift you up in more ways than one.
Yeah, he's a little taller than me.
Yeah.
We all have to pass on the better genes to our children.
Okay. All right. So tell us, for many, especially for many Bermudians, right? The how can I put it? The thought of moving from Bermuda is not likely taken. We've seen a migration of some Bermudians to the UK, some US, and other places, but we don't often
Mhm.
hear about Bermudians migrating to the Bahamas. So tell us about that. And for those who don't know, just tell them what the Bahamas is about, because some people just think it's one single island.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I mean, I'll be honest. Making the move from Bermuda to the Bahamas was a very, very difficult move for me. I was a typical Bermudian. Bermuda was home. Bermuda was always going to be home, and I wasn't going to be leaving Bermuda. Um, but I'm an only child. My wife is one of eight. She wanted to move closer to her family, and I at the time I didn't want to move. My career at Marsh was on a vertical plane. I was doing exceptionally well at Marsh. Senior management at Marsh had asked me, about staying on longer. But at the end of the day, a marriage is two people, and a marriage is about give and take. So I actually had approached Alan Peacock because I had spent a couple of summers at Colonial. My mom worked for Colonial in the early years, and he had always wanted me to work for Colonial. I knew they had an operation here, so I approached him about the possibility of moving here through the Colonial Group, and he agreed. So he had me come down here as the vice president of pension administration. So I established the pension operation in the Bahamas. I managed that for a few years until I was headhunted by a large local insurance broker to run the health and life department.
Mhm.
But it wasn't an easy move for me, because most Bermudians, I was very, very attached to Bermuda, and I didn't see a future outside Bermuda. But we moved to Nassau. But as you said, a lot of people do get somewhat confused over the Bahamas. When Hurricane Melissa went through the other day, I feel sorry for those in Jamaica that felt the full brunt of that Category 5 storm. But when it went through the Bahamas the other day, it went through the southern islands. So if you look on the map that you have up now, the southern islands would be Long Island, Maguana, Aucklands, Little Inagua, Great Inagua, Ragged Island. So the storm went through that path, I think, as a Cat 2. And I did get messages asking me how I was faring. But you can see where Nassau is. So, Nassau to Long Island, for example, I believe is somewhere around 90 to 95 miles, maybe 100 miles away. So, the Bahamas is spread between Fort Lauderdale. Grand Bahama is about 50 miles off the coast of Fort Lauderdale, 50, 60 miles, and it stretches down to nearly the coast of Cuba. So you have a few hundred thousand miles that the Bahamas stretch in the North Atlantic Ocean. So it's not just Nassau is the capital, but as you can see there, Nassau, or New Providence, as the island is called, is actually one of the smallest inhabited islands in the archipelago. But it is the capital, and it is where most of the population live.
So tell us, for those who don't know, tell us a little bit about life in the Bahamas, because a lot of people think Bahamas is just some cruise port. Tell us about life in the Bahamas and how it compares to Bermuda.
Well, one of the things that, well, I actually, when I moved here, I had a lot of friends already because at Acadia, when I was at Acadia, I think there were about 60 Bermudians and about 45 or 50 Bahamians. And, we all congregated together. So there was a close connection between Bermudians and Bahamians. So ultimately the move here was a lot easier because I already had friends here. But there's very little difference between Bermudians and Bahamians as a people. Very, very friendly, willing to help you out when you need help. Just overall good people. The environment here isn't that much different from Bermuda. Bermuda has obviously, Bermuda is the third largest third largest insurance domicile in the world, and the world's largest reinsurance domicile. But the Bahamas has, banking, investment management, and trust. So, the economies are similar, although the Bahamas does rely a bit more on tourism than Bermuda does. The Bahamas receives somewhere, around, I think at this point, about 8 million tourists a year. So, it definitely is a tourist domicile. But when you get outside of Nassau, that map you had up, if you look at Andros is, I think, the fourth or fifth largest island in the Caribbean, although the Bahamas isn't in the Caribbean. But Andros only has a population of, I believe, about 6,000 people. So you got a couple hundred square miles of island with, a very, very small population. So very, very little of the island is developed. And you'll find, outside of Nassau, the second most populous location is Grand Bahama and Freeport in particular. I think there's about 40,000 people in Grand Bahama, but Grand Bahama is, it's I think it's about 150,000 square miles, or 150 to 200 square miles. So, it's a big place with 40,000 people. When you look at Bermuda with 21 square miles and 60,000 people, you can begin to imagine how much space there actually is. So the Family Islands tend to be sparsely populated. They do have all the infrastructure in place, telephone, electricity, internet. And, when we were growing up, we always heard, Bermuda good, Bahamas bad, because Bahamas took independence and Bahamas had all of this debt to carry, and all the negative stories that we would have heard from the government of the day. But one of the things they didn't tell you is that when the British were in the Bahamas, they did not develop the Bahamas. Once the Bahamas took independence, the Bahamas had to take responsibility for every single one of those islands. The Bahamas is 700 islands and keys with 35 major inhabited islands. So the Bahamas government had put infrastructure in every one of those locations. The Bahamas has, I believe, 24 international airports or somewhere around there. So those airports had to be built and they had to be maintained. You have some islands with Ragged Island has, a very, very small population of 30 or 40 people, but the government still has to provide utilities. So, there's significant infrastructure investment for such a small population, but it has to be done because those people are Bahamians and they live in the Bahamas and they should be entitled to all of the infrastructure that Nassau or the other developed islands have.
Yeah, I want to add a historical
So
aspect as well.
But yeah, the Bahamas was the center of privateering. Blackbeard was located here in Nassau. Nassau was obviously chosen as the capital because if you look at the map, Nassau is very, very much protected, and as it's surrounded by other islands, and that shows up in hurricanes as well. typically, and one of the things, because I'm in the insurance industry, one of the things that I've done is looked at the history of hurricanes moving through the Bahamas. And over the last 50 years, the Bahamas Nassau has not been hit by anything greater than about a Cat 2. Because if you look to the south of Nassau towards Great Exuma, you have 90 miles of water with an average depth of about 50 feet. So hurricanes can't develop and thrive in 50 foot of water. So what typically happens is the hurricanes go to the east, around Cat Island, Eleuthera, Abaco, and then around to Grand Bahama, because that's where the deep warm Atlantic waters are. So Nassau is very, very much protected, and that's why it's the capital.
All right. I wanna add a historical aspect that a lot of people don't know, right? When I was in the Bahamas a few years back, let me put it that way, I went to there's this museum down on Bay Street called Pompey House. And I'm walking around looking at all the historical thing, and then something stood out. I saw a word, a name that stood out, and I said, and the name was Bermuda, right? And here at Pompey House, they have a display up saying, in the mid 1600s, Puritans from Bermuda seeking religious freedom immigrated. That's the word that Trump didn't like. Immigrated to the Bahamas and brought with them African slaves. Soon after the migration of the Puritans, Bermudian authorities banished to the Bahamas their less desirable whites. What does less desirable whites mean? I don't know. I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
You would have to tell me, but I know this story very well. This was Captain William Sale, and those Africans were actually freed African slaves, and they were running from religious persecution. They actually shipwrecked off the island of Eleuthera, and they made their home at a place called Preacher's Cave, which is actually a cave. And today, if you go to Eleuthera, Eleutherans very much have a Bermuda accent.
Yeah.
And I tell people here all the time, the relationship between Bermuda and the Bahamas goes way back. In fact, we colonized the Eleuthera.
Yeah, because
the accent is very much like Bermuda.
Yeah, I was at a church service, and they was having tea afterwards in Fox Hill, not far from you actually. And this lady says to me, "How come you son?" She says, "Are you?" She asked me, "Am I Bahamian?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, how come you sound like us, right?" So I said, "No, you all sound like us. Like we don't sound like you." So she's like, "What do you mean?"
Exactly.
So I explained to her, I said, "Have you ever heard of the Eleutherian adventurers?" And she says, "Yes, that's part of our history."
Yep.
I said, "Well, where do you think, where do you know where those people came from?" And she says, "I don't know, somewhere." I said, "They came from Bermuda." So the original I shouldn't say the original, post Columbus genocidal tour of the Caribbean, when he wiped out the Lucan Indians, right? The first inhabitants. Well, in Bahamas it was the Lucan, because that's called the Lucan Cape, but let's not argue. The first inhabitants post that genocide were blacks and whites from Bermuda, right? So, as you said, if you go to Eleuthera, the Eleutheran accent is very Bermudian, right? Very Bermudian-like. A lot of the names are very Bermudian-like. A lot of the, I guess you'll say, even facial features are very, black people, they be looking at each other like, yeah, he looks like Sam. Then he look like Guilden. That could look like Guilden's boy. And we have, different sections of the Caribbean have different facial features to some extent, right? So we are literally biologically related to many, not all, many persons in in the Bahamas, both blacks and whites, right? I went
Yep.
to. I'm gonna bring something else up, which I also found very funny. Um, uh, which, which I also found very funny when I was in when I was in the Bahamas, right? And
Mm-hmm.
something that you would well, any Bermudian would know. Um, what is the overall population of the Bahamas?
About 400,000.
Okay, so we have a message here. Good morning, Bruce, from Mr. Paul Telford. And
Look at Paul.
if I'm not mistaken, he's in Turks and
Paul's
Caicos
next.
Island,
It's from
right?
Turks and Caicos. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, general manager of, I want to say,
yeah.
the Shore
And
Hotel.
his grandfather and my grandfather were good friends. Telford Electric.
Yeah, some of the people. Well, sorry, White Hill. He's from White Hill.
Yep.
Um. Oh, sorry. Move that. Um. Yeah. So when I'm trying to find an image. Okay, 1 minute. Oh, he says Scholar Hill.
Yep.
there's so when I was I can't find the picture, but when I was in the Bahamas,
Mm-hmm.
I went to this place and got something to drink, right? And the guy said to me, "Hey, oh, I see you like our national beverage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not well. Let me be clear, non-alcoholic beverage, right?" I said, "What do you mean your national beverage, right?" And he said, "Yeah, that's our that is our national beverage." And I said, "You sure about that?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, okay, hold on. That's your national beverage. Let me see if I find it here."
Yep. Barrett's ginger beer.
I said, "How is that your national? Explain to me how is that your
But
national beverage, right?" And I said,
mm-hmm.
he said, "Well, everybody in Bahamas drinks Barrett's ginger beer, right?" I said, "You know where
Mm-hmm.
Barrett's come from?" He said, "Yeah, it comes from the A and something bottling factory in Nassau." I said, "They might be the distributors, right? But let me help you out. Barrett's ginger beer comes from Smith's, Devonshire in Bermuda." And he was, actually
In
arguing with
Bermuda.
me. And I was like, let me Google this for you, bro. Right? So I say that to say that a lot of times we as Bermudians are given fed this narrative that we should have nothing to do with the Caribbean. As you said, you actually worked for
Mm-hmm.
Colonial in the Bahamas, right? Now changed
Mm-hmm.
their name to CG, right?
To
Um,
CG. Yep. And they're one of the biggest sponsors of West Indies cricket now too.
right. We should have nothing to do with the Caribbean. Mr. Telford could
But
tell you,
going back to Barrett's ginger beer. I did the Duke of Edinburgh Awards when I was in Whitney, and we did our silver. There was a group of I think about 8 of us. We did our silver. When we were doing our silver, we did our away trip was to Crooked Island here in the Bahamas. Crooked Island is you can essentially see the lights of Cuba at night. That's how far that island is. Population at that time was probably 50 or 60 people, but they had Barrett's ginger beer.
they had Barrett's ginger beer
And
and Crooked Island.
I was 15 years old then. So Barrett's has been here a long time.
Exactly, which
Crooked Island is in Crooked Island is not far from Meguana.
okay.
It's right in the political constituency is called Maikal, Meguana, Inagua, Acklands, or what is it? Meguana, Inagua, Crooked Island, Acklands. Trying to think what the L is. I can't remember what the L is because I don't get too involved in Bahamian politics. So
Yeah. Okay. So the point I'm getting at is that Bermudian business owners have been intimately involved, and I say that with a pun intended, intimately involved in businesses in the Caribbean, throughout the Caribbean for a long, long,
for
long
centuries.
time. Right. But we, as the melanated
Remember,
folk,
Bermudians raked the salt fields in Turks and Caicos.
right, and Mr. Telford, who's tuning in, can attest that the native Turks and Caicos Islanders, they sound like us, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
Oh,
have the same,
if you close your eyes, you would think you're in Bermuda.
right. They have the same surnames as us, right?
Yep,
I mean
Butterfield.
the original
Yep,
Bermuda names, the Butterfields, the Fripps, the Talbots, the
yep,
Durhams, the Swans.
yep,
They might spell it
yep,
slightly different. The Beans,
yep,
right? The Smiths, the
yep,
Malcolms.
yep.
The current premier
Exactly.
of Turks and Caicos Island is the Honorable Charles Washington Missick. He's actually
Mm-hmm.
related to the Durham family in Bermuda, right? The Aswoods. This is like
Mm-hmm.
Mayflower names. If you want to, I'm trying to be
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
here. The
yeah.
Mayflower
No,
names of
I
Bermuda,
agree.
right? So I say that in the sense that it's very interesting having yourself as a Gaston, a Bermudian who has migrated to the Bahamas. One of our viewers is Mr. Telford, a Bermudian who has migrated to um, Turks and Caicos, right?
Yeah,
And we have to dispel this myth that the, going to the Caribbean or Atlantic Caribbean islands is a move backwards, is a move forward, right? People actually have to understand if people from America and England are down there developing businesses, why shouldn't Bermudians go
mm-hmm.
down there develop businesses? Why shouldn't you further your
100%,
career? Right, Mr. Telford, right? I didn't get to see him the one time
100%.
I was in Turks and Caicos 3 years ago. I didn't get to see him, but the Shore Club is like one of the most exclusive clubs in Turks and Caicos, and we have a Bermudian
Yep,
who's the general manager, right?
yep, exactly.
And so I say that I use that. I'm using a little bully pulpit for a minute just to dispel the myths that Bermudians have to think that the only progress is moving to America or moving to England. No, you got more prospects going south because
Yep,
it's but I'll just leave it alone. But um that's a whole not a
not a
show in
topic.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Bahamas, whilst in the Bahamas, you have developed several businesses. Tell us about one of them.
All right. Yeah, the businesses I have is about I stepped out on my own. I realized in 2001 that I was making money for other people when I could do it for myself. So in 2001, I actually stepped out and became an independent insurance broker. And then in 2008, uh, my now business partner and I, Victor Chandler, started Chandler Gilbert Insurance Associates. We are a boutique insurance brokerage operation, two-man operation. Well, we have 5 people in the office, including the 2 of us. But we've done very, very well. We're very highly regarded as a broker because of our specialties, because of our access to the London market. And then in 2005, I created a company called Innovative Building Systems with a focus on introducing the Bermuda roof to the Bahamas market.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's another product here that was calling itself a Bermuda roof. It's a white step styrofoam roof, but it's just not the same product. But one of the key reasons I look to introduce it is being in insurance and property insurance, I saw the roof damage that was occurring. And, in Bermuda, we typically have minimal roof damage when a hurricane passes through. So I said, let me look at see if I can introduce the Bermuda roof, to this market. And we've done it. We've done it very successfully. We've done about 17 installations in Turks and Caicos. We've done obviously a number of installations here. We've done an installation. The picture you have up now is from a house in Naples, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony with that is that in order to do that house in Naples, we had to be uplift tested by an independent engineer. And the engineering firm used a pole test. We tested and they have to get to the point where they break the roof on that pole.
What
they
do you mean
broke the roof at 1,020 pounds per square foot. Well, so essentially what they do is a pull test. So they attach to the roof and they pull off, with a crane to determine what uplift forces this roof can absorb before it fails. So when I say break, it's at what point will the roof fail? We failed at 1,020 pounds per square feet of uplift, which when converted to wind speed, it equates to 630 mile an hour wind speeds. So before that, they couldn't break the roof. That just goes to show you how strong the Bermuda roof is. And I think now the styrofoam roof is a stronger roof than the limestone roof, because the limestone roof relies on weight to hold it to stay down in high winds. But we've done now in excess of 300,000 square feet of Bermuda roof between the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and now Naples.
So where do you manufacture? Where do these products are manufactured?
All right. Well, essentially what I did was I took the SKB product and effectively made it my own product. So there's a couple of things that I did. If you look at the SKB profile, to me, the weather on the profile is too small. The limestone roof has a 2-inch weather and an 8.5-inch run between the top of one weather and the bottom of the other. So what I did is, a good friend of mine here has a foam company. So him and I act as joint venture partners. He cuts my foam, but I designed the profile of the tile, because what I did is I actually put a slate roof on my pool house here at my house. And so I wanted once the roof was installed, I wanted it to look like a limestone slate roof to the untrained eye. So what I've done is I've matched the slate profile. From there, we have created an adhesive that holds the tile down, and I took the SKB base coat, that has fiberbond base coat, and manipulated it to make it stronger. I worked with a chemical company in South Florida, and I developed this product, and this product has served us exceptionally well, in the quality of this roof.
Mm-hmm.
I also hold, when SKB was doing the roof, they had a distributorship for Plysem, which is a structural cement board that comes out of Costa Rica and Honduras. I have the exclusive distribution of that board for the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and a few of the other islands. I did have it for a short time in Bermuda, but other boards were being used in Bermuda, and I did have a conversation with the construction retailer about picking it up, and that didn't happen. So somebody else in Bermuda has the distributorship for Plysem. Mm-hmm. Plysem is the king of the. Go ahead.
No, good. You finish.
Go ahead. Yeah, Plysem is the cream of the crop when it comes to cement board. So I do have a retail construction supply company here that inventories it, and my commitment to them is that I would not compete with them on a retail basis. I only use it for the roof application for our jobs. I don't sell it on a retail basis. So I've given that to them.
All right, this ain't just closing up on the roof thing. This ain't no small roof. Excuse my bad.
No, that roof is That roof is about 12,500 square feet. I mean, the reality is we are the most expensive roof product in this market. So unfortunately, we are a high-end product, and our average install is about 10,000 square feet.
And what for those that can't afford it, what is the price per square foot, give or take?
With the cement board, we're probably now close to $30 a square foot installed.
Okay. All righty.
But
So,
contrary to everybody else, I give a long-term warranty to the homeowners against leaks and cracks.
all right. Have any of your roofs come off as yet?
What's that?
No, I'm asking, in all the hurricanes since you've started, have you had a loss of any
Oh,
of the
we've
roofs?
had no, we've had no damage. And SKB did a couple of roofs in Abaco about 40 years ago. Hurricane Dorian went through as probably the most intense hurricane ever, a Cat 5 with, wind speeds were over 220 miles an hour with gusts of 250. Those SKB roofs survived Hurricane Dorian.
Okay. All
Other
right.
roofs completely failed, but those roofs survived.
All right. So thank you for that. So in total, you have, I shouldn't say in total, but you have, it sounds like you have at least 3 or 4 businesses going on in the Bahamas.
Yeah, the other one is renewable energy.
Okay.
We partnered with a company called Alternative Power Sources Jamaica back in 2008. Combined between Jamaica, we've done a couple installs in Bermuda as well. We did Pitt and Co. a number of years ago. So I think we did nearly 200 kilowatts for them. But between Jamaica, the Bahamas, and Bermuda, as a company, we've done over 8 megawatt of installed solar.
Okay.
And
As someone who works, yeah.
No, go ahead. Finish your point.
As someone who works at the power company, I can't exactly thank you, but feel free.
No, and there's a product that I'm very excited about. I have a U.S. partner, and collectively we have developed a new parking lot canopy solar system that is patented and patent pending. So anybody who's familiar with parking lot solar, you have a fixed substructure and the panels go on top of that. What we've done, so it's a heavy underlying structure. What we've done is we've actually created 2 posts spread 90 foot apart, and we run stainless steel cable. So our panels are in a box and they unfold out of the box, very similar to what you see in space technology. So they'll unfold out of the box, and then we have single axis tracking. So they will track the sun during the day. So for when you compare a typical parking lot, so let's take 100 kilowatt parking lot canopy, you're going to get roughly, 500 kilowatts out of that. The multiple is 5 peak sun hours. If you take ours, you're actually going to get 20% more power during the day because of that single axis tracking. And we are rated at 200 mile an hour wind speeds because our panels retract into a box. At 35 mile an hour wind speeds, those panels will automatically retract into the box to protect them.
Okay. All right.
And we don't take up any parking spaces.
All right. So let's make a nice slight transition. Or tell us about this picture.
Sure. Well, I have been a supporter of Manchester United for as long as I can remember. So I've been in the doldrums with Manchester United before. I went through the glory years. I've been through the last doldrum, and it looks like we have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. But I've been to Old Trafford a couple of times, and typically I go, my wife takes me around my birthday. So this was January of this year. We played Brighton, and Brighton beat us to a pulp. But when I came out of the lounge that we we were in, I said to the wife, let's go out to the field before anybody goes out there. And as I came out of the lounge and walked down the hall, I saw this gentleman come out of an office on a cell phone, and I saw him from behind. I said to my wife, I said, that's Sir Alex. I said, so let's stay right here for a couple minutes. I want to see if he comes off his phone. So he walked about 30 feet away from me. He was on his phone. And about 5 minutes later, he came off his phone and he was heading into the office. So I called him. I called his name. He came over, talked to me. My wife told me it was my birthday. He wished me happy birthday, and then him and I got this picture together. So that loss didn't feel so bad because I got to meet the one who gave us 13 Premier League titles.
Sorry, say that again. I couldn't hear you.
It was a great experience.
No, I meant how many Premier League titles? I couldn't hear you.
In 20 years, he won 13 league titles.
Oh, more than Liverpool, right?
Yeah, more than Liverpool. Well, think about it. Liverpool went 30 years without winning a title. They finally got to number 21 ahead of us last year. But how long did it take them to get those?
No, they're not.
So Alex said
they're only at 20. Let's not give them anything extra. They are only at 20.
No,
they've caught us up.
They're 20, but Sir Alex knocked them off their perch, and it took them 30 years to win another one just to tie us at 19. So,
right.
That was a long time to be off their perch.
I had a guest last week that I will remain nameless, but they are staunch Liverpool supporters. But I was trying to keep this conversation.
I know him well.
I was trying to keep the conversation not what they call too secular. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole because some guys just lose they've been in a funk lately, and that might have triggered them, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't want to trigger him.
Yeah. So apart from,
but no, we've been to Old Trafford, a few times, and I turned 60 in January. My partner and I are looking at selling the insurance brokerage operation, so I will slow down a little bit. And I told my wife, once my daughter goes off to school, the goal is to spend more time traveling than at home, and going to more Man United games is definitely on that list.
So, all right. Tell us about these. Tell us about this.
Photography has been a part of my life now for 45 years. I actually started photography when I was doing the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme in 1980, and I've never put the camera down. So, I am recognized here in the Bahamas as a sports photographer. This is at the IAAF, or now the World Relays, that were hosted here in the Bahamas. This one, I don't think I was under contract with the local organizing committee, but the one before this, I was the official photographer for the local organizing committee. So, I shoot a lot of sports. I've been hired by the Bermuda Football Association when they were here to play the Bahamas and World Cup qualifiers. I've been contracted by the Bahamas Football Association to cover, some of their CONCACAF and FIFA qualifying games. I've been contracted by Trinidad to cover some games. They had to play a game here against Haiti, and I was contracted to shoot that game. And my daughter being a swimmer, I spend a lot of time around the pool. So essentially, that's my daughter there. So essentially, I guess I would be the official swim photographer in this market.
Mm-hmm.
And I started teaching photography about 8 years ago.
So you were doing
photography is just.
You were doing photography when we still had film.
Yeah, but I actually still shoot and develop film. So yeah, I haven't lost. I never gave up those roots.
Okay.
So, while I do shoot, digital for, for my sporting events, I do still shoot and develop film. Yeah, this is a game where Trinidad played the Bahamas, and I think if I remember correctly, the Bahamas actually held Trinidad to a 0-0 draw in this game,
Mm. All right.
which was a huge accomplishment for the Bahamas.
Alrighty. Um, and this one.
Yeah, this one, a lot of my work has been picked up by a number of galleries around the world. This one has been fairly popular with the galleries. It's typical London, rainy weather, overcast skies, and an old roadmaster bus. I think there's only 2 or 3 of them on the road now.
Okay. This one.
That is Tower Bridge, taken about 9, 10 o'clock at night. This is Athens. And the story behind this image is that the ruin you see at the top is actually, I can't remember the name of the Greek god, but the Greek god is the god of iron and steel. So I thought it was, with the train going through, it gives that juxtaposition.
Okay. It tells like photojournalism, right? It's telling a story.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So as we start to wind on, I want to thank
Mhm.
you for being a guest. I want to again thank media partners Cayman Marwood, CBN Radio and TV in the Virgin Islands, Radio Turks and Caicos, where Mr. Paul Telford is. Shout out to Chris Jarrett and Damian Wilson. And Channel 82 in Bermuda, Mr. Lemon Woods, who's now actually got his law degree. So we'll have him on as a guest one day. But let me just pick your because you're quite the debater, right? Let's not shy away from this. You've written a lot of op-eds over the years. You're
Quite
a
a
what
few,
what
a
the
few.
a few and your one of those that don't hide your name. You write you put your name to everything you write, right? How
Of
without getting
course.
into um picking sides or anything to not even about Bermuda per se. How would you define leadership?
How would I define leadership?
Hmm.
I define leadership as one one who has the ability to make sound decisions, but who is also willing to pass that knowledge on to others. Leadership isn't about keeping everything to yourself so that you always have the upper hand. And one of using photography as an analogy here. When I started photography, most of the professional photographers at the time did not want to teach anybody else photography because they saw it as teaching somebody to be their competitor. So I'm 100% self-taught in photography. The reason I teach photography today is because my view, the knowledge that we have is only valuable if it's passed on to somebody else. So my view of leadership is that you have knowledge that others may not have, but you're only a leader if you pass that knowledge on and allow others to grasp that knowledge and potentially fill your shoes, either with force or willingly you decide to step aside. But I don't think anybody should be afraid of knowledge, assuming that somebody is going to come and take their position. I mean, one of the things that I did when I went to the insurance brokerage that I went to, I said to the staff there, my goal here is to impart the insurance knowledge that I have on you. And if at the end of the day you become my competitor, may the best person win. But at least I know you have the knowledge that I've passed on, to compete. And the client at the end of the day wins because the client gets the knowledge no matter which one they choose. So I just think leadership is about passing on knowledge. Too many people, protect their jobs by withholding knowledge and information. I think you're losing out in doing that. That to me, that's not leadership.
Mhm. Alrighty. Well, yeah, I think that's spot on, as they say in England. Spot on, mate. Um, because let's be real, right? This is Bermuda. Persons like your dad and his generation,
Mhm.
some of them got to go to the UK, and some
Mhm.
majority didn't. Majority were in Bermuda, and but
Yep.
Bermudian men, specifically black men, people from Somerset all the way to St. George's, they were taught different traits by older generations. It was passed on. They didn't
Mhm.
get a chance to go to. Most of them never got a chance to go to high school, and for sure, most of them never
Yep.
went to university. But they learned
Mhm.
trades from others, as you said. As you went to that brokerage, your goal is to teach others, right? Um, you first of all you have to learn it yourself and then pass it on to others. And in
Yep.
passing these traits and skills on to others, our black and white and Portuguese communities grew, right? We
Mhm.
didn't always have tourism. We didn't always have international business. We were very a farming industry,
Yep.
a,
Mhm.
fishing industry, and some level of construction, right? So whether you was a farmer,
Mhm.
fisher, construction worker, all of this are skills. You didn't have any fun where you download an app and look on YouTube and learn how to do it. You had to go to the
Yep.
elders in the neighborhood or wherever
Mhm.
to learn about that. So I concur with you that leadership is about passing on these skills to the next person and not worrying about, oh, is this person gonna compete with me or whatever. It's silliness, right?
Yeah. And and for me, where this was, outside of everything my father did, but I have to lift up Patrick Tannock here because the insurance knowledge that I've gained, I got that foundation through Patrick. Patrick reached out and actually created a position for me in Marsh, and he took me under his wing as he did for everybody else. In it was only a small department. I think it was 3 or 4 of us in the department, but he was never shy in passing on his knowledge. He was always encouraging us to make sure that we learn, make sure that we fully understand what it is that we're doing, so we can, be of service to provide a service to the insured clients that those clients deserve. But Patrick was never shy in, no matter how the rank in the corporate world, Patrick was never shy about reaching back and pulling others along with him. So I have to give, Patrick is, I tell him all the time, Patrick is I see Patrick as my mentor. I owe a great deal of my insurance success to Patrick and what Patrick did for me. And, I'm eternally grateful for that.
Okay. All right. So we're starting to wind
And,
down. I
when,
just
when it comes to my father, I mean,
go ahead.
yeah, no, I said, like, with my father, I mean, for example, he made sure that I knew how to work with my hands. I wouldn't have been able to introduce this roof to this market if I didn't know how to use my hands, because I also had to pass that knowledge on to the work crews. So my father passing on, his trade, his hands on, you know. So around my house, I do a lot of my own electrical work. I do a lot of my own plumbing work. I do a lot of my own masonry work. I wouldn't say that I'm the best, but I can do enough to get by and serve the purposes that are needed within the company. within my home, and I owe that to my father because he made sure, he made sure I got an academic education, but he also made sure that I was able to do things with my hands, to build things, to create things, you know. So, and I think that's important for us as men to pass on to not just our children, but to other young men that we encounter.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well, right? We're in an era in Bermuda where unfortunately young black men are taking lives of other young black men, right? That wasn't the Bermuda that you and I grew up in. I say that in a
Mhm.
sense, not delving too far into that. That's a whole separate conversation. But us as black men, we need to encourage each other, support each other, right? Because
100%.
I don't want to use the word validation, but I want to use the word that if someone of your own gender and quote unquote melanated group is not doesn't show you support, then you feel like, well, what's the value of my life? You look for that validation by doing some negative things, right? And we
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
validate each other when we see each other doing positive things. Like, well, we are quick to say, "Yeah, man, that guy missed that girl," but the fact that the guy even made the team, we need to congratulate
yep,
them for that, right? Um,
yeah. I agree. I agree.
Politicians make bad decisions all the time, right? But
Hmm.
the point is the fact that someone put themselves forward to run for politics in a toxic environment, you have to congratulate them for that.
Yep,
Somebody might have a
I
business
agree.
failure at some point in time, but the fact that they took a chance and the money, right, and to
Yep.
try to start a business, right. So I say that
Mhm.
to any black man that's listening right now, right, and I'm specifically saying black men, not discounting whites or others, but I am your brother, right? Gilden is your brother. Like we're here for you, right? Gilden's had to
Yep,
give me colorful language behind the scenes a number of times, and likewise, right? It's like, hey, Gilden,
yep.
right? But it's helped to mill me, and I'm
But,
sure
and that's the thing. We have to hold each other accountable as well.
right,
You know, uh, part of being friends is holding the other person accountable and calling them out on the mess that they do. That's
right,
that's what friendship is.
right. So I want to take a
Not that
moment
you've
just
done anything that
well, I would say at times in your eyes and others' eyes, I'm guilty by association. I'm not saying what association. They just paint everybody with the broad brush, right? And I want to give a shout out to this young man,
Indeed.
Shamori Sky. He's a young man, young Bermudian man, Bermudian bus driver, bus operator, sorry, um, a father, a husband. He always comes
Mhm.
up with
Mhm.
ideas. Some of the ideas are a little bit, but at
Yeah.
least is not afraid to propose things that
And
he
that's the
thinks
thing.
is going to be better for Bermuda.
And I tell him all the time, I may not agree with the ideas you come up with, but at least you're thinking outside the box.
Yeah. So
You know.
um I'm going to make a slight transition before we close up here, right? As we all know, Hurricane Melissa destroyed the western part of Jamaica last week, right? Um, Thousands are without homes, like literally hundreds of thousands are without homes, hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands are with. The last count, 200,000 persons don't have electricity, running water. There's a lot of help going on, but much more is needed. It's estimated that the damage is somewhere about $10 billion US in damage. So on Friday, this Friday coming up, I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Angela Brown Burke, a Jamaican MP, about some of the stuff that they're doing to help with the recovery effort. And I am appealing to all Bermudians, anyone who's listening, to tune in because she's going to give outline some ways in which persons can assist. Right? We sent a plane went down yesterday, organized by the Keynes brothers and others. The Jamaican Association took down some goods food, some
Mhm.
food, some camping equipment, medical supplies, and clothing went down yesterday. So I want to thank the Cairns brothers, not just the Cairns brothers, but the Cairns family. Um, I have them on at another time to talk about that. But Dr. Angela Brownberg will be speaking about the efforts that are going on. So this is this Friday at 2 p.m. and I encourage you all to tune in. And also on a separate note, um, the Deputy Prime Minister of Bermuda, Honorable Jeffrey Henley, is going to be in Bermuda this weekend, and he's going to be having a meeting at St. Paul's, not Amy, Anglican Church in Paget for persons who are of Caucasian heritage, which is half of Bermuda. Um, Talk about the relationship between St. Kitts and Bermuda and opportunities for Bermudians to invest. So I encourage all who are interested to attend this meeting. The last time they had a meeting, such meeting, the hall was filled to capacity. So now they have moved to a bigger hall. So I will just encourage that. But again, we have Mr. Hugo Pereira. We're going to have him on one day talk about the Portuguese part of Bermuda. Thus celebrating 176 years
Mhm.
of the first ship from Madeira came to Bermuda, the Golden Rule, and the progress that the Azorean Portuguese people have made in Bermuda. And I also want to give a thank you to Mr. Paul Telford. I'd like to have him on as a guest one day in case you're listening, Mr. Telford. My I'll send you a message. Um, but yeah, thank you, Gilden. I want to not just for the show, but again, thank you for being like a big brother to me, right?
No, no problem. We
Um,
gotta keep you
we
in
didn't get
check,
a
you know.
chance to talk. We didn't get a chance to talk about our favorite cricket team, but that's
That
that's
we'll leave
another
that
day,
for
right?
another time.
Yeah. But give thanks to everybody in Bahamas who tuned in, and
I will.
Foxy. What is your area called again? Lightfoot Key.
Mm-hmm. Life for keep.
Yeah, give thanks for everything, and we'll
No,
catch up.
it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure and an honor to do this. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man, no problem. And Bermuda, as I said, 2 o'clock on 2 o'clock Bermuda time, 1 o'clock in Jamaica. We'll be speaking with Dr. Angela Brown Burke about Hurricane Melissa recovery efforts. And once again, Territories Talk was formed so us folks in the small islands have a voice to the world. And I want to thank you.
Thank you very much.
And shout out to my co-host, Shanna Smith Archer in the beautiful Virgin Islands, and Speaker Shirley Osborne in Montserrat. And that's a wrap, folks.